Is Kraven the Hunter finally a good Sony villain movie? Well, no, not really, but it's not completely terrible, so here's my full spoiler-free thoughts on the best and worst parts of the film. Let's start with the really bad, which is both the dialogue and the acting in this film. It's a combination of the two of these that make every interaction between characters just so unbelievably cringy. There's really bad uses of ADR, which if you don't know is pretty much them recording their lines in post-production, so it doesn't even match up with their mouth, or they're like looking out a window, but you can tell they're not talking in that moment. It's absolutely abysmal writing. There's so many clunker lines, especially the villain. He is on par with the Madam Web villain of just having every single line that comes out of his mouth. It's so unbelievably stupid, but the good part about all of this bad that I'm talking about is that it's kind of so stupid that you can at least laugh at it and be entertained by how bad it is. It's not like a Morbius or even like a Joker Folie à Deux, because like Joker Folie à Deux is definitely a better made film all around than this, but I think it's more tedious to sit through. This film just knows how dumb it is, and I was having fun with it. One of the biggest issues with this film is that like 30 minutes at the beginning of this movie focuses on a younger Kraven from 16 years ago, and we focus on his entire origin story, and we set up all these other characters when they're young, and it just keeps going on forever and ever. Who has ever been interested in Kraven the Hunter's origin story? Absolutely nobody. Like, I feel like most superhero movies by this point have finally learned, like, hey, you can skip the origin story and just get right into the hero or villain business, like Spider-Man Homecoming and the Batman. And I know that's because those have iconic origin stories, but nobody's gonna complain if you skip Kraven's full origins. Just explain it in like a 5 to 10 minute flashback and get into the brutal action. Because the thing is, even when we cut back to present day, we're finally watching his version of Kraven, it still takes like another 25 minutes to finally have like the driving force of the plot happens, and basically the entire movie happens in the last like 40 minutes of this. It's just so obvious they couldn't come up with a story that took up more time, so they just had to pad out this runtime the best they could. I will say, once an inciting incident happens to one character, I'm not going to say what, the movie finally does kind of pick up steam in the second half. There's definitely not great moments, and again, there's super bad line deliveries, but there's lots of fun action sequences towards the end. I just wish we got some of those action sequences earlier in the movie, because I feel like for the most part, even though this film had the R rating, it still kind of holds back. Like, yeah, there's a lot of blood in different scenes, but the violence still feels more PG-13 than I was expecting. I was expecting some completely wild moments in this. There are some really fun fights towards the very end of this film that I would be lying if I say I wasn't fully engaged in them. I will also say this film also is very surprisingly good looking visually. Like, there's lots of actually really good shots in this. The cinematography is great. You can tell it's shot on a lot of real locations over green screens, and it honestly looks better than like 90% of MCU movies because of that reason. Like, I was just thinking, hey, if there was actually a decent writing team behind this movie, this would actually be pretty good because the visuals are actually up to par. Russell Crowe was another highlight. He plays the dad of Kraven the Hunter in this movie, and obviously you know Russell Crowe is going to give you his all and be great even if he's in a bad movie, and yeah, that's what he does in this film. He delivers a much needed, just good performance in this movie where pretty much everybody else is shaky. Aaron Taylor Johnson's fine in the role. Every time the movie cut to Russell Crowe, it just got infinitely better. I wish he had more screen time, honestly. I think one of the worst scenes of the entire movie is the very final scene. Again, this is spoiler free. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a very obvious, oh, we're setting up this bigger Sony universe and we're setting up for the Kraven the Hunter sequel. Are you ready to see this stuff in the next movie? Which A, we're obviously not going to get another Kraven movie, and B, they pretty much just confirmed that they're going to be shutting down all the Sony spin-offs. So yeah, we're not going to see any of these anymore, which is kind of tragic. Because yes, outside of the first Venom movie, these are all pretty terrible movies, but they're kind of like a train wreck. I can't take my eyes away from them. Definitely worse ways to spend 2 hours. There's some mildly entertaining fight scenes, and if you go with a group of friends that are all willing to just sit down and laugh at the absurdity of some of the absolutely terrible performances and line delivery in this, you'll honestly have a pretty decent time. As I mentioned on my Letterboxd review, there is one of the most unbelievably abrupt cuts to a Harry Styles song in this movie that caught me so off guard. I literally laughed out loud in the theater. Even me telling you it's coming, you're still not going to expect it when it comes in and the song they picked. Follow me on Letterboxd at Vets Movies, by the way. But overall, it's a 5 out of 10. It's just a perfectly mediocre, stupid, dumb, fun movie.